We're doing it live. We are live. All right, here we go. Welcome to Money Lap Podcast. I'm Parker Kligerman, joined as always by Landon Cassill, and I'm going to do the same intro we always do, but this time I'm going to condense it and make it quicker because, Landon, we were just chatting beforehand. We were like, wait a second, we just need to press play. This conversation would be great on the podcast. I'm coming to you from North Carolina right now, so I apologize if the audio is not perfect. But nonetheless, on today's show, before we jump into that, we talked quickly about the car I had this week at home and then tested, which was fun. Our reacts and how they're growing like crazy on YouTube. You should be a subscriber on our YouTube if you're not. We got great stuff over there. We got some reviews and questions. And also, we will dive into, now that it's Wednesday, and sort of push it forward about NASCAR's greatest short track race of the next-gen era, for sure. Should a series like NASCAR build their own tires after what we saw this past weekend? We'll get into that. The F1 president was cleared.
With that?
I'm going to get in there. Was cleared, unlike our own U.S. presidents as of late, from his wrongdoing. Mohammed bin Salem, by the way. And Indycar is headed to Netflix. And one last thing, Landon. Hostility at the Nürburgring. We're going to have all that and more here on the Money Lap. Let's dive in the PR lap. Yeah, should we have that should have been like a perfect intro music time. Love it. Landon, let's talk the PR lab. I mentioned it. I had a Supra this past weekend, a GR Supra. I brought up the Lime Rock this past week. It was a lot of fun. Got a full YouTube video coming out on my YouTube here in the next couple of weeks. I'll full right up on the Utopian. Fun car, but like I said last week, discovered why the Supra's been so fast. They've got 6 gears, and it's the most unbelievable gearbox I've ever driven in my life. So, especially manual.
Was
gearbox.
It a manual?
Yeah, manual, 6-speed. Yeah. It's called
That's
an
cool.
intelligent manual transmission, by the way. So
Did it have like
sentient.
auto blip and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's sentient. It's thinking. It's smarter than you and I combined, for sure.
How does that work?
Well, they worked probably with ChatGPT and asked it if it was a gearbox, what would it be like? And then that was the gearbox it gave us.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to have to tune into YouTube and
You're gonna have
Octopian to find out more, or what?
You have to get on my YouTube to find out.
Okay.
That's a plug.
Jeez. Okay.
Speaking of which, you should like and subscribe to the Money Lap YouTube because I mentioned it in our intro. We've just done our 11th React. This is where you and I react to great moments in motorsports, not just NASCAR. And these have done really well. So if you have not caught these, go check them out. This last one was definitely our funniest. We did the Most Sport race between Cole Custer and John Hunter Nemechek when they wrecked across the line and then fought each other.
So let us know in the comments if you want us to trend funny or continue to trend serious and analytical.
That's a good point.
Because if you want us to trend funny, we could do a react of the St. Louis truck race with Spencer Gallagher and John West Townley.
That was interesting. That was a good one.
May God rest his soul. What else we got here?
Yes.
Like and subscribe. We have a request from Kevin.
We do.
He wants to press Landon to make a name for my Race Cars Are Too Stiff campaign on Money Lap. So
what are you going to turn
Kevin, I don't know. We got to brand this thing somehow. Race cars are too stiff cars. I don't know. Then we got an email from Corey Butler about the Camaro.
Yes, and he's a friend of the show. Just to let him, he basically asked what Chevy is planning to go to in NASCAR, considering that the Camaro is going out of production. It's not known yet. So being a Chevy driver, they told us it's not decided yet, or at least we don't know yet. So to keep talking about
do you think it'll be a new car, or like the Malibu, or what are we talking about here?
I don't know. I think it's sort of open. I think I thought there would be some indication, but I don't have an indication yet, so I can't say one way or the other. Or does the Camaro come back? The Mustang is lived on in a different iteration, aside from it's just the regular Mustang. So you never know. Could it come back as something else? Also, not in our notes there. I just need to give a shout out. Kamal Sekhan sent us one of the longest emails we've ever gotten to friends@themoneylap.com, considering this email is brand new, by the way, alerting to us as to why the first few F1 races were on Saturdays.
That's right. Actually, it was very educational. Thank you.
Very educational. And so you just got to give a shout out. Thank you very much, with all sorts of information, and it was incredible. But basically, it's Ramadan was the reason, which is the Muslim religious moment of fasting and religious observation, which started on March 10th. So that's why they were on Saturdays, which makes sense.
Because
so,
the race venues were in Muslim countries.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Thank you for helping me out with that. Yes. So thank you, Kamal, for, I hope I'm saying your name right, for the email, and we appreciate it. If you want to send us an email and let us know, like Corey and Kamal, friends@themoneylap.com, and you too can be on this podcast. And then last thing here from around the internets, from TK Racing Diecast on our Instagram. Is there anywhere we can watch Proving Grounds, which is the car show I had? There are some episodes on YouTube, on the NBC Sports YouTube. I believe season 1 and maybe 1 of season 3. Otherwise, season 2 and 3, which 3 was by far the best, I don't think they're anywhere out there. So we'll see. But unfortunately, they're not out there right now.
Interesting.
Yeah. But appreciate it. If you want more car stuff, I'm doing it on my YouTube and, of course, on the Autopian. So go check it out there. Thanks, TK.
Well, if you want more car stuff, but it's not full-size cars, it's diecast cars, then you can look no further than SpoilerDiecast.com, one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. Sorry about that. I was looking for my ad read in our show notes, and I couldn't. I deleted the ad read. Yes, I read them every week.
I thought you just did this straight from the brain.
Did I just ruin it for everybody?
It's ruined.
I'm sorry. I was looking for it.
Santa's not real.
At SpoilerDiecast.com, we pride ourselves on excellent service. All orders ship either the same or next day, ensuring you, Parker Kligerman, can get your hands on your favorite products in no time. And the best part, we offer free shipping on orders over $20. That's right, you can enjoy a smooth and affordable shopping experience with us, SpoilerDiecast.com. They have over 800 unique products currently in stock. SpoilerDiecast.com boasts one of the largest inventories in the industry. They're NASCAR-focused, but they do offer a wide range of diecast and apparel options. So F1, IndyCar, dirt sprint cars, pretty much everything you need. They are passionate racing fans just like us, just like you, the listener. So go to SpoilerDiecast.com. And then on top of that, if you're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, check them out because they have a new brick-and-mortar location. You can get all your diecast and racing needs.
Are you gonna survive
Santa,
this one?
Santa is not real. Landon reads this. Well, I do ad-lib a little bit, and obviously the transitions, but I deleted it. As you were talking about the last thing you were talking about, I deleted the link to my read, so I didn't know how to get to it. So I had to kind of...
That's fine. I appreciate it. Also, if you've gone to their retail location looking for one of my signed hero cards, as we've sort of done this promotion with them where you can get some of my signed hero cards there, we got a set lost in the mail, apparently. So whoever the person is who got about 50 to 100 signed autographed hero cards by accident in the U.S. mail system, you are welcome.
You're sitting on a gold mine.
Gold mine.
Because
you
it costs at least
hit.
80 cents a piece to produce this.
They sell on eBay for at least $1.13 of shipping cost. But yeah, anyway... We have a whole new batch being sent to Spoiler Diecast headquarters as we speak. So we apologize, but they will be there.
Speaking of auctions.
Yes, I want to get into this because we have our new buddies at Pristine Auction who are part of the podcast. And we announced last week that we're going to be doing this giveaway leading to the greatest day in motorsports, which is on Memorial Day weekend, the Monaco GP, the Coca-Cola 600, and the Indy 500, all on the same day, right? Well, what better way to celebrate that than to give away items related to motorsports from that day. And we're going and getting those items on Pristine Auction, which if you don't know what Pristine Auction is, it's whether you're into autographed memorabilia, helmets, photos, trading cards, or even more exclusive items, Pristine Auction is the place to be. With thousands of items, guaranteed authenticity, you can own a piece of racing history at your price. If you're a big-time collector or just starting out, Pristine Auction is the choice for unique memorabilia across all sports. Join a community that values quality, service, and scoring great wins. Use code MONEYLAP at Pristine Auction for $10 off your first win. Visit pristineauction.com. That's Pristine, Pristine, auction, AUCTION.com. Register now and let your collection speak for itself. All right, Landon, so we do have our first item, but I'm going to make you guess what it is. See if you can guess what it is. And I will say that because it's an auction platform, we are trying to stay within a certain budget, which to make this a little bit more fun. And we have been outbid occasionally now, which has been fun. I'm not going to tell you what the other things are that we're supposed to win later tonight, because I don't want people to go on there.
Well, I know what I picked out.
Well, I know, yeah, but I'm saying what I've picked out that's been a problem. So, well, not a problem, but I don't want to be outbid. So I want to try and get them this time.
Is in the show notes, is there a hint here in the show notes? Is this what I'm looking at?
Yeah. But yeah, I did write it in the show notes. So that's a problem. So this driver, my item, which I've won, which I actually have.
Because if I can use the hint that's in your show notes, I think I'm partway there. I don't know what the product is though. Is it pajamas of this? Is it a pajama set of these drivers?
No, it's autographed. It's autographed of this driver.
Autographed what?
You can wear it on your head.
Can I say what I think it is?
You can say what you think it is.
It's something autographed.
Yep.
Of Jeff Gordon, and I can
Correct.
wear it on my head.
Yes.
So you have an autographed toupee. Jimmy Spencer's toupee is autographed by Jeff Gordon.
How did you know? How did you know?
Unbelievable.
Uncanny. Literally the same mind. Yeah, it's a toupee if you would consider a helmet something that you would.
Oh, it's a helmet.
In place of hair.
Oh,
yeah.
It's a helmet.
Exactly.
You said you could wear it on your head. I was thinking, okay.
No, that's a good guess. Well, anyway, check out Pristine Auction. Use code MONEYLAP and stay tuned over the next couple of weeks and months as we lead towards the greatest day.
What era helmet is this? Is this like a 90s helmet, a 2000s helmet? What do we got here?
It's a helmet. We got to unveil all this stuff, but
okay.
at least you
okay.
it's a
Sorry.
teaser.
I just want to know.
It's a teaser.
I just want to know.
Stop blowing up our spot. But yeah, we're gonna have more to unveil as we go. But it's been fun. Go check out Pristine Auction. Let's jump into NASCAR. We mentioned it. It was the best short track race in the history of the next gen era. Probably for a lot of reasons that many were not expecting, and that was probably what made it so good. In that it was a sudden, extreme set of tire wear conditions that created a race in which drivers had to work really hard to take care of their tires, and teams had to adjust on the fly. NASCAR had to add an extra set to the race. And I know if you're listening to this on Wednesday into Thursday, obviously we're not, who won, Denny Hamlin won, that sort of thing. But we want to dive into is sort of why this happened and ways we think maybe this could continue into the future and how NASCAR could use this, right, to their advantage to say, hey, how do we replicate this more often? Because before we get into that, personally, I watched that race and thought this was sensational. I thought it was 90s NASCAR in a if you could have bottled and sold me 90s NASCAR in 2024 and what it would look like, that was it. Like that was exactly it. Tire saving and everyone having a chance at some point and just constant turnover of the field and mixing up of all different teams and an idea of like, hey, anyone could win this at any point and anything could happen. That was the feeling I got watching that race.
So if we're going to talk about tires for a second, can I fire off and just maybe hijack the direction of this and we go with it?
Well, I wanted your reaction first, like your
to the race itself.
Yeah, I just wanted what did you think? What was going through your mind? The people want to know. What did Landon Cassill feel when he was watching that? You said it to me in a text.
I loved it. I was glued to the TV. I mean, I wanted to know what was going to happen. It was hard for me to tell who had the best car, right? It was hard for me to tell who was going to win. I would say towards the second half of the race, you could tell those Gibbs cars were really, really good on long runs.
Yeah.
Whether it's Truex or Hamlin, and maybe if I was watching timing and scoring even closer, I probably would have been more obvious to me. But as a, as a fan that was watching TV as it was in front of me, it was thrilling. And I think a caution at any point in the last 40 laps, 30 laps would have been really interesting. Remember, I was texting in a group message that I was just like, oh my God, please give me a caution. I want to see what happens. Which is weird because we normally are just begging for long green flag run finishes, and we always roll our eyes when NASCAR throws a caution. NASCAR did not want to throw a caution in this race.
No way.
But I was curious what would happen. They're out of tires. Who maybe saved a set of tires? Who's been putting scuffs on and saved a set of stickers? I don't know. Yeah. Right? It would be interesting. So, no, I was really happy with it. You still hate seeing tires just blow off the cars. That part of it just is not the best. Mm-hmm. You want to see the tire fall off, and you want to see the cars go from top speed, most capable speed. Sorry, I backed up there. Most capable speed to, just progressive fall off to where they're really, really slow. But that actual drop off where the tire literally peels off of the car is not necessarily a fun thing, because it just leads to a caution, right? It's just inevitable that a caution is going to happen. So that part of it I don't like as much, but the actual tire saving and the act of those drivers having to drive under the limit of the tire and manage when they want to drive at the limit of the tire is very interesting, and is absolutely something that we should get to watch a race. We should get to watch 6 to 8 races a year like that. If we're getting 6 races a year of super speedway racing, and we get 6 to 8 races a year of that, and we get 6 to 8 races a year of road courses, and we get 6 to 8 races a year of intermediate racing, like that's a really, really well balanced schedule.
It's diverse.
So, yeah, it's very diverse, and it's cool. It's what makes but that was classic stock car racing. I think it's no surprise that the drivers that excelled yesterday were classic stock car drivers too.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one that surprised me that didn't excel was Kyle Busch. But I also think that the setups of the cars were a big surprise to the teams. I don't think they were anticipating that to that degree. But I just think it was very interesting that the classic stock car drivers, the Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Brad Keselowski, those guys did really, really well.
I think they're the three. I think they're the 3 oldest in the field, right?
Well, those are the guys that drove.
Kyle Busch?
Have the most. Those are the drivers that have the most experience with that type of racing. I mean, you could take a Kyle Larson, right, who is one of the best drivers in the world. And dirt racing, you definitely have a degree of throttle control for sure in saving tires, but it's still different than short track racing saving tires.
Yep.
Right. And it's fun. It was interesting to me to see some of the younger drivers that don't have that, that don't quite have the experience that a Brad Keselowski or Denny Hamlin does in that style of racing. So, Josh Berry being a factor all day. Although it was funny, is Josh looked like he was better on short runs than he was on long runs.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, that was a guy that excelled, and he's fresh out of racing with that style of racing with late model stock. So it was really cool for me. I think that where I want to hijack the conversation and just make a point off of a tweet that I made is that I believe, we had talked last week, and we had been talking about the stiffness of these cars, right, and what it's done to these cars and what it's done to stock car racing and NASCAR racing. And then it was like almost like we spoke it into existence. Bristol happens, right, where the tires wore out, right? And the effect of that, if we raced at Bristol again next week, the reaction that the teams would make is they would have to soften up their cars, right? They would have to have softer springs. They would start sacrificing aero for mechanical grip. They would make the tires last. If Goodyear didn't change anything, they would come back next week and make the tires last longer just by setting the cars up for a more mechanical setup than for a more aero setup, right? And if when you talk about analogies like the tail wagging the dog, right, it made me realize that over the last 2 decades, we've had this stiffness. We've been in this car and tire stiffness death spiral where the teams push to make the cars go faster. So it abuses the tires more, right? And then Goodyear, to protect the teams, protect themselves, protect the cars, they make a more durable tire, right? And they go, oh, wow, we had tire issues at XYZ race. We were blistering tires. We were wearing tires out. Okay, we are going to react by coming back with a more, a tire with more structural integrity, right? So now the teams have basically a bigger window to then push harder, right, and make cars that are stiffer yet and push the tire into the track even harder because they need to create grip, and which also allows them to control the aero platform, which makes the cars more aero-dependent, right? When now you're controlling everything by the aero platform. So then they're continuing to push to the edge, and then the cars are getting faster, and they're bigger and heavier, and then you get to a point where it's like, okay, we're blistering tires again. So what does Goodyear do? They got to make a harder tire. They got to make a thinner tire. They got to do all these things, and I feel like this has been a 20-year death spiral to the point where now we're looking at this next-gen car that is stiffer than any car we've ever driven. We're still running 3,000-pound springs in the cars, right? We've got a low-profile stiff tire, and everything is the stiffest it's ever been, right?
It sits
until
on a
Bristol.
stop. Yep.
Until Bristol. And it makes me wonder if the mandate went the other direction. If the mandate went this direction of Goodyear and NASCAR and the team saying, let's keep making a softer tire to where you can't even make it through a full stint without wearing the tire out completely to the point of it failing, right? Then the teams would have to soften their setups, right, and make the tire last longer. And then if the next adjustment we made to the tire made it softer yet to where now those soft setups actually can't last an entire run, right? Now we have to go softer yet. And so then the teams have to keep making a car softer, right? And now you have cars that are just moving around, and they're so soft because every time the teams make the car softer to catch up with the tire, then the tire gets softer yet. And, and obviously everything has a limit, but like, what if we took what we just learned at Bristol and went the other direction and said, let's just make things softer now? And do the cars slide around? Do we see more of a classic stock car race? Are the drivers able to lean into each other as opposed to doinking into each other the way they do with these rigid cars, and it just bumps someone off the track, right? Like, can we slide into each other? And
I think we know that. Hold on, we know the name for your stiffness thing. It's doinking.
Yeah, well, that is like my. I know I say it all the time, but it's like that's the only way I can describe what happens with these stiff cars that are just glued to the track, and then they just and then they pop off the track. It's just like you doink into somebody, and then it's just like they just pop off, right? And it's so annoying. It's not stock car racing.
Sound effects.
But what we saw at Bristol was stock car racing.
So
right?
can I butt in here for a sec, because I get where you're going, but I think you're living in a bit of a utopian.
I'm
mindset.
living in fantasy land.
And here's why.
Land.
You are not incorrect in that the sport went this direction, that we ended up in this position where tires last multiple fuel runs. And remember the era of repays where you would take left side sometimes, and no tires.
Death spiral.
It was out of control, right? And then the cars got stiff and so on and so forth. And then in this latest car, they were sitting on the shock stop at times, and therefore the car, literally the only suspension on that car was the tire. So Goodyear was, of course, in a tough position, which when we were blowing tires at Texas and Kansas, right?
Right.
It was putting too much deflection and load on that tire, which is already a very thin sidewall. And I thought Chase, I was going to bring this up later, but I thought he had a really interesting thought on that, in that a very, I think, cerebral thought, in that he said, I've been of the position that Goodyear is in a tough position. Goodyear don't want to have tire failures, right? And that's where what you're saying and why your thought is maybe a bit utopian in fantasy is that, yes, we could go softer, but then there's going to be a team that are going to say, wait a second, we could just stiffen up this car and use that tire, but use it for a very short amount of time. But if we, and it will go faster, right? And then we just got to figure out how to make that tire, try and make the driver make the tire last longer, so on and so forth. And then the spiral starts the other way, right? That's basically
yeah,
you
as
see
long
what I'm
as
saying? Like,
Goodyear doesn't react, right? And Goodyear, and what happened in the early 2000s, I want to let you keep talking here, but what happened in the early 2000s is exactly that, right? The teams discovered aero.
Yes.
And they discovered ways to control aero with coil binding. By making they figured out that we can stiffen the cars up and make them go faster, right?
Yep.
And so when they had tire issues, they put it on Goodyear to fix the problem, not themselves, right? It's like, well, we're not going to soften our cars back up, right? We're not going to go back to running conventional springs. You just need to bring a better tire, right? And you have Goodyear, who's trying to, I don't know, sell tires to the masses that they want to put tires on their Monte Carlo that they drive to work every day. They don't want to turn on the TV and the CEO of Goodyear watch his tires blow out on Sundays in this marketing program that they're spending $50 million on.
Yep.
Right? So Goodyear's, that message trickles all, from the CEO all the way down to the engineers designing these tires. Messages trickles all the way down and goes, why am I spending so much money to watch my tires blow out on Sundays on TV?
Yep.
Right? And so then that's where the death spiral happens. And then you also had a time period, God bless him, Tony Stewart, love you to death, but the guy absolutely ripped Goodyear. That was extremely influential during that time period for the negative, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I know that because I spoke to Goodyear people during those years about those conversations. Right, that shared with me, like, what am I supposed to do? My boss at Goodyear is calling me on Monday morning, ripping me a new one because this NASCAR driver is getting on TV saying that Goodyear sucks and builds junk tires.
Yep.
Right? So what are you going to do if you're Goodyear? You're going to go way extreme. You're going to build a tire that's going to last, and you're going to say, sorry, that's what we got. It's a tire. It works. Right? It's not going to blow out.
It's okay. So this leads to my point that I made on my In the Wall YouTube show a year ago or 2 years ago at this point. And I've asked this question multiple times, and I don't mean this just for Goodyear, because I think F1 has gone through a similar problem. If you remember, I wrote about this in the Money Lap newsletter, by the way. You could have checked out this morning on Wednesday with Parker's POV. I do a column every Wednesday morning for the Money Lap newsletter. This week I talked about tires, and I went back and talked about how Pirelli, when they first became a single tire supplier of F1, they came in there with this idea, and F1 had this idea of, like, let's have super soft tires that the teams have to pit 1,000,000 times, and it's going to be amazing and all this stuff. And then what happened was they ended up with races that had 5 or more pit stops and drivers going super slow to save the tires, and it all went a bit excessive, right? And maybe that's the extreme. And the thing I remember Pirelli saying at the time was eventually it got so bad that Pirelli was like, look, this isn't good marketing for us. We want out. And the teams and the drivers were actually kind of excited because they're like, these tires, the strategy is there and it's fun. But from the outside, it looked kind of ridiculous when Fernando Alonso couldn't, keep his tires on the car for more than 10 laps. And suddenly it's a really bad marketing thing for Pirelli, who's trying to sell cars to rich people with supercars, that, hey, we make really good tires, right? And so I asked the question at the time, and I wondered, I was like, should series make their own tires? Now, bear with me for a second, especially single tire supplier series. Now, we used to have tire wars across many racing series. In NASCAR, it went away in the early 90s when Hoosier and Goodyear were going at it because there was too many blowouts, right? And the tires got too soft and crazy, and it got dangerous, and so they got away from that, and Goodyear became
You said I'm living in utopia.
Hold on. Wait.
I'm the one living in fantasy land.
Let me get there. I don't think mine's as outlandish as everyone thinks, including some maybe people at places that are.
I'm just trying to change the direction of the feedback loop here.
Hold on. I'm just gonna go somewhere real quick with this. Give me a second. Let me run here. Let the boy run. So
all right, let's cook. Go.
I'm I'm seeing all this, right? And all the tire wars go away, and eventually it goes to single tire suppliers across most motorsports now. And sports cars, there's a little bit of mix. Nonetheless, we get in this position where you have a single tire supplier, and it's a marketing platform for them. And of course, it can be a really good marketing platform, but then it negates any sort of sponsorship from other tire suppliers and tire companies out there, right, for the teams. Two, it's the incentive structure for the tire supplier versus the series and the fans is completely opposite, because you have a tire supplier who wants to market that they make great tires, but great tires don't always put on good racing shows, right? A great tire that goes forever doesn't put on a great show. We need some variability in them to wear out, and maybe to go too far and have them have what happened this past weekend at Bristol. So right then and there, and I'm always big on incentive structures, to me, the incentive structure between someone like a Goodyear and NASCAR and what they're trying to create each and every Sunday is wrong, right? It's a difference. There's a clash there. And to Chase Elliott's point, Goodyear's in a tough position because they, and you alluded to, they just want to have a good tire that they're sort of showing that they can make a tire, and that Goodyear's on the screen and able to market and say, hey, look, we're a part of NASCAR and Americana and that sort of thing, and buy Goodyear's on your cars, right? NASCAR gets done with a race like Bristol and says, that was awesome, and tires were blowing at 50 laps, right? So it's like, and the fans are like, that was awesome, I want more of that. So my point being, is there a way for a series like F1, like NASCAR, to go to where these tires are made and say, we're going to take over that facility? This is now going to become a NASCAR tire. This tire, whole production, everything is going to be under NASCAR, the sanctioning body. Teams, NASCAR, we're now allowed to sell sponsorship to anyone. Goodyear, you can still be here. You can still be on 25 cars if you want. Go sponsor them for all we care. Go sponsor tracks. Go buy ads, so on and so forth. But now we make the tires. We make the decisions. And if anyone has a problem, they come to us because it's for the show. Technically, in a utopian world, incentive structure-wise, that makes more sense. Now, I get that there's probably financial reasons that doesn't make sense. But I don't know. When you get to numbers in the billions, like we have in the NASCAR world right now, with the media rights and the amount of tickets that are sold, and so on and so forth, and in F1 in a similar position, when you get in the billions, I find very little reasons to think that financially there's almost that there isn't a lot that's possible. We're talking money with a B in front of it, billions. A lot is possible in the billions. That's what my point is on that. So
yeah, maybe the business strategy is beyond just them making tires for themselves. Maybe it goes all the way down to other racing series, and maybe all of that combined can make up for what they give up by having a corporate partner like Goodyear paying sponsorship dollars and spending ad money and all that stuff.
Consumer product. What about NASCAR tires?
What you were saying kind of reminded me of some wise words that I had heard from a very successful businessman fairly recently actually, and it sounds maybe a little bit dictatorial, but the words were basically, the question asked is, hey, with all your business that you have, how are you successful with all these people, right? Because like every business leader says, oh, hire the right people, and all this stuff. Yeah, I get that. No, really, tell me what you actually do in your business that gets your people to do what you want and your business to run the way you want it. And the response was, I reserve the right to run my business. And what I don't want this to be an overly critical to NASCAR, like I just know better, but I'm just a race car driver podcaster at this point sitting on a leather couch. But really what NASCAR has with Goodyear building their tires, which is a core fundamental to their race car, is the type of tire that goes on those race car, is NASCAR not reserving the right to run their own business when it comes to the car, right? And you could say whether we're suggesting that NASCAR needs to build their own tires or whatever, at the end of the day, what you're saying is maybe NASCAR just needs to reserve the right to run their business, to be able to make that call. because Goodyear has to make that call right now. They put their name on it, and their core business is to sell tires to millions of people, right? And I don't have to repeat everything you just said that I already said earlier too. Like it doesn't look good on them to have tire failures.
And for those out there that are going to say, well, they have suppliers, when you think about NASCAR basically designed this race car, right? It's a NASCAR race car now. But they use suppliers, right, for everything. My rebuttal to that would be, and I hate to use this tagline because it is a certain company's tagline, but the tires in terms of a racing show are literally where the rubber meets the road. Ba-boom, sorry. But no, the point being that there are a few levers you can pull in modern day motorsports that can affect the show so drastically as the tire that the car races on, right? Because it's everything. You could add 1,000 horsepower, but if all the cars are on metal wheels, they're not going to go very fast, right? There's no rubber there. That's not going to work very well. You could send a bunch of rubber-tired cars out on an ice course. That's going to be an interesting show, right? If you provide spikes, it's going to be different. A soft tire versus a hard tire, it can change the very nature of the show, of what you're watching so drastically, so quickly, that if I had to say, of all the things that they choose to supply, have a supplier provide, this is one of the few things where it's like, that would make sense in my mind for them to control. To your point of reserve the right to run their business. They could control the show in a way they probably never have before with that owning the tires. You muted yourself.
Sorry, I was muting myself. Absolutely. They, that still could come with, obviously, ripe for plenty of conspiracy and, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of potentials there, but it's an interesting theory. It's maybe I just can leave it at that. It's a great conversation to have. It's an interesting theory. Who knows where it can go? I love talking about this. I think that we're really onto something. I firmly believe it. I've experienced this in my life, driving these cars. I've driven race cars of all different types that were exactly what you saw at Bristol. I've experienced it in NASCAR myself. And then I've experienced the other side of it, right? I've driven on rock hard tires that just could last an entire race. And I've been to tire tests. So it's such an interesting topic, and I feel like I've never understood it more than I have in the last couple of weeks when we've simply just been talking about it. Right?
Yeah.
And the stiffness of these cars. And the last, I don't know if it's the last point, but one other additional point that kind of came out of Bristol. And what's funny is I thought that I was had this original thought, but then I went on Twitter and I saw Chase Elliott made points about this. I think Denny Hamlin made points about this. There's a lot of people that made points that when you have the tire do what it did at Bristol, nobody talked about horsepower.
I was literally just about to say that.
And it's funny because we have been talking for years, right?
Yep.
But especially the last year about how bad we want 1,000 horsepower, right? Kevin Harvick went viral last week on his podcast talking about how we need 1,000 horsepower. The cars need to have 1,000 horsepower. And I still agree with that. I would love to see it. I think it's very cool. I'm a big proponent of 1,000 horsepower. But I will say there's always been this thought in the back of my mind that the cars that we long for and the stock car racing that we love and that we miss and that we point to when we talk about classic stock car racing, they didn't have 1,000 horsepower. They had 600, 700 through the 90s, maybe late 90s, 700, 800 when it got really big, pushing the upper eights. But Jeff Gordon in the 90s, those highlight reels of Dale Earnhardt spinning out Darrell Waltrip and them guys saving tires at North Wilkesboro, they didn't have 1,000 horsepower.
No.
But
they were probably right where they are now.
Yeah, they're probably right where they are now. They had tires that wore out.
Super soft tires.
They had cars that slid around on the racetrack, and they raced against each other. And now the difference, though, is in that time period, I believe, and maybe this is better to ask a true expert that knows engines and knows where they were at in that time period, that they had the most horsepower that they could have at that time period. Yeah. Right. And that's, I think, what was special. And I think that is maybe what when we talk about horsepower, that is something that is important for stock car racing that I could get behind. That it's just like, hey, these cars should have the most possible horsepower that that a V8, 300 and some plus whatever cubic inch engine can put out, because that's American. That's NASCAR. That's stock car racing. Give me 1,000 horsepower. Let's go. So that
I also want
to.
I want a 230 mile per hour damn qualifying lap for the Daytona 500. I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill. I want it. I want to see it. I want Daytona 500.
You don't die in that car and fly
Well, no, that would be horrible. That qualifying is something I want to see. I would buy a ticket to see that. I literally would buy
yourself.
A ticket.
You would buy the ticket just to watch yourself.
If I'm in it, if I'm in it, that's a whole nother. That's awesome. I made it back to Cup. Cool. But no, the thing to me with that, it's like, yes, I agree. You actually make a great point, which is like, yes, that's probably, when we think about it, and what this showed us is like tires were maybe just more important. We didn't even know we could go this path again. But it's the funny thing about where modern motorsport is that we know all this stuff now, right? And so now we're trying to almost like create the type of racing we want to see. That's everywhere. Mm-hmm. That's not just NASCAR. That is Formula One. That's IndyCar. That's sports cars. You name it. If it's being raced right now at a professional level, they are trying to create some form of show out of it through either restricting technology, budget caps, single source suppliers, cars that are designed by the series, so on and so forth. Everyone's doing the same thing. And
well, maybe
I think
that's
that's your point, though. Yeah.
That's my point is now, because I think one of the cheap excuses could be like, well, we can't unlearn aero. And it's just like, okay, that's fine. That's fair. You're right. Thanks for stating the obvious that we can't unlearn what we've learned. But maybe you can you find something like the tire, the durability of the tire, and you say, okay, you can build a car that is aero-dependent, right? That is coil binding, on bump stops, stiff, that is going to hold an aero platform on a smooth racetrack. You can build that car, but it's only going to last 10 laps. So good luck.
I love that. Bring it on.
Right? If you want to last 500 laps and you only get 10 sets of tires, you're going to have to find a way to make your car last, and you can't build an aero-dependent car. But that's just not what we had. That's what we had at Bristol. That's just not what we've had for the last 2 decades, because for the last 2 decades, we've been building aero-dependent cars because we've been allowed to build aero-dependent cars.
Man, right. I'm just thinking about, like, for those listening who don't know what it's like to drive a car on a tire that gets worse versus a tire that doesn't. I'm thinking so I've been in NASCAR since 2009, and there are very seldom races that I can remember that I had to drive like I did in ARCA. And ARCA ran on Hoosiers, which were historically very soft, right? Mm-hmm. And in ARCA, it's the short track style driving that you talked about, which is you're trying to treat the tire as nicely as possible while creating lap time. And my crew chief at the time had this old amazing stock carism. He'd be like, drive it like there's an eggshell under the gas pedal. Eggshell under the gas pedal, right? But you do that over 100 lap run, and at the end of 100 laps, I'd be damn surprised if you're not flying by people like they're sitting still. And it was an amazing feeling from all that. And then NASCAR in the last couple of years, and especially that past 2010, 2011, 2012, all the repaves happening, my gosh, we went to some places, and you would run a qualifying lap, or as hard as you could from the first lap to the end of the race. And the only difference was heat getting in the tire and some rubber, sort of the groove changing around a little bit. But you would just run as hard as you could, and you never thought about it. Yep. And there was months I didn't ever think about saving tire. It's come back at times a little bit here and there, and especially in the Xfinity car, you have little places where it's like, oh, this might pay off to be nice to the tire a little bit. But, man, there's still times where even then it's like, where it would have been a 3 or 4 second penalty in an ARCA car on the Hoosier, where our penalty is you're falling off a 10th and a half, right, compared to the end of the run, and it's like, okay, that's not massive, and then aero matters more, and so on and so forth. So it's for those listening, like that's what we're going through as a driver on the inside, feeling that car differently and how we approach this differently. Why this is such a revelation. That whatever happened this past weekend, which I want to get into next, by the way. I want to shift this forward because we promised this is Wednesday. It's going out on Thursday probably. Where do we go from here? How does Goodyear replicate this, right? How do we take the learning from this and say, all right, Martinsville, damn, what do we like? How do we learn from this to say like, this has to happen again?
So
you've now shown what's possible.
I will be a little bit pessimistic for a second.
Yeah.
And just say that this was exciting. I think everybody loved it and is talking about it. And then your question is, how do we go from here? Where do we go from here? And my concern is, my pessimism is that I don't know that we're all on the same page. Right? If we're not all on the same page, then we're probably not going to go anywhere from here. Right? To me, if Goodyear needs to be, if this is truly what we want, if this is what NASCAR wants, if this is what the fans want, then Goodyear needs to be on that same page. And based on what I saw after the race, that they weren't on the same page, right? Their initial reaction was the same reaction that we always see at a Goodyear, which is like, hey, I'm glad everybody liked this, right? They acknowledge that. But they were like, this was too much wear. It was excessive, right? We need to make a change, right? We're gonna look into this. And which to me, it just sounded like, okay, they're going to have to make a change.
Yeah.
And I texted with somebody from Goodyear this week and kind of got a similar response that was just like, hey, it was a popular opinion, right? And they're going to do a test before the fall race. And so, everybody, they're acknowledging that everybody loved it, but they're still going to test, and they still have to, protect their product, obviously. So I'm just concerned that if Goodyear's not on the same page, that like, hey, this is what we want, that they're going to end up overreacting to it, right? They're going to say, oh, well, let's just make an adjustment, right? The tire lasted 45 laps. We want to make it last 80 laps, right? Where really, if we were all on the same page, I feel like Goodyear would be saying, let's not touch it. Let's let the teams make it last 80 laps.
Yeah.
Right? You guys figure it out. It's up to you to make the tire last. If you can't make Look, the tire didn't last 40 laps at the beginning of the race. Denny Hamlin won the race on how many laps on that last set of tires?
Over 50, I think. Right around 50.
Over 50. So just in one race, they found a way to make the tire last longer.
And they couldn't change anything. Remember, when
they couldn't change anything.
When they saw this issue in practice, which a lot of teams did, they couldn't change anything. I mean,
so how much do you think? How much life are they going to get out of that tire just by going back to the simulator?
So I had a discussion.
To the shop,
I talked to some engineers at RCR, and specific, obviously, engineers on the racing team and on the Cup side, and they told me, they said, just sitting here now, if they could go back the next day. They were like, we would make that tire last 80, 100 laps easy.
There you go.
The setups were set up.
So here's what you do. Here's my cycle. Here's the new flywheel, the new cycle that I want. That if I were in charge, right? If I could get everybody on the same page, is that you don't change the tire. You don't change anything. You put the resin back down, and then you let the teams go back to Bristol in the fall, right? And if the teams go to Bristol and make 100-lap runs with no tire issues, then we soften the tire a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We push the teams a little bit. We go a little bit farther now.
Yep.
And maybe we might see another race with some tire issues. Okay, but now we're gonna push the teams to soften their cars up a little bit more, to find life and to make themselves make tire life, right? Not the other way around. Not the tail wagging the dog. Like, who's in charge here? Who runs this thing? Is it Goodyear determining how the team should set the cars up? Goodyear and NASCAR, holding the teams back? Or is it the teams pushing Goodyear to just make a stiffer tire? So you can't let the teams dictate that, because the way we make race cars go faster is by making them stiffer, right? And making them more aero-dependent. That's how a car is optimized. You have to keep that in check. So that's to answer your questions, where do we go from here? It's like, it depends. Are we all on the same page?
Or we would be, because NASCAR said, I saw Probst quote was, I thought that was an awesome race.
I'm sure he did. I'm glad he said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad he said that.
If he was controlling the tires, there'd be no reason to change.
There you go. You made it.
There
you made
go.
me. You made me.
I came around.
That NASCAR should be controlling the tires. Got it.
That's my point. There you go.
It's a good point. It's a fun conversation.
I think
we could. I think
the root of it all is, let's see where this goes. But the exciting part is, by accident or whatever, we were shown maybe a different path to creating the type of racing we all want to see out of stock cars, and that'd be really, really cool. So bring it
At
on.
least on
Let's
that
see if we
type
make it
of
happen.
track.
Yeah, on that type of track. And who knows what they could learn from the other ones, but let's see. Let's move forward. NASCAR's heading to COTA, and SVG will be doing his first Cup race of the year as he races in Xfinity against myself as well. So he'll be doing both series, which will be interesting to see. And Kamui Kobayashi is back to make an appearance here in the Cup Series in a Toyota, the absolute sports car assassin, as I called him at times, because the guy is unbelievable. He's in a sports car. I watched him do some just amazing things at the Rolex 24 and Sebring in the DPI cars, and has been a part of the Toyota LMP programs, and is just an overall badass. So cool to see him back in Cup, some international flavor once again at the road courses. Not quite as much as we saw in the last 2 years, but cool to see him back. So I've also done over 100 laps in the sim in the last 2 days, about 120. So I feel
Doesn't sound like
I'm
a lot, but it's a big track.
It's a minute and a half lap. So you do the math. It's a serious amount of smash and break. And another series that races at there as well, at that same track, is Formula One, by the way. Formula One. So let's jump into some of the things happening around in that world. The FIA president, Mohammed Ben Salem, has been cleared of all wrongdoings in regards to the allegations of trying to overturn an Alonso penalty. That was quick. Happened real fast. He also was able to explain his hesitations around the Las Vegas GP, and that the allegations he had against him, that he had pushed to have it not approved by the FIA. He basically said that he's also a driver, and he just wanted to make sure some of the safety concerns were met. So a quick resolution there, once again with the FIA, which is interesting because
there's just no corruption at all.
No.
In any of like, come on, let's just be real for a second. It is the Formula One and everything around European motorsport.
Well,
it's just, it is the most stand-up.
Are you
straight?
Are you saying are you saying you could, the FIA, could you just put an F in front of the A, and would it relate to that world as well? That's known for its upstanding,
I don't know,
just transparent dealings in the FIFA world.
Just absolutely, yeah. Everything that goes on in international sport and motorsport is just extremely honest and
That's impressive. They're really a model and template for everyone else to live
This
by,
next one is fun. I want to introduce this next one in only way
it?
I can introduce it, because I somehow don't. Maybe I just haven't been on social media or haven't been seeing what's going on. All I see is a show note that is written Esteban Ocon, the Ross Chastain of F1. Okay, what did I miss?
There's actually nothing.
Is Esteban Ocon a watermelon farmer?
Well, he's one step away. He's in the F1 terms. He's a watermelon farmer. They grew up in a small apartment in Monaco. So I'm joking. I'm joking. That was a bad joke. So basically, there was an interview on motorsport.com from Esteban Ocon where he had a quote that said, "I had the weight of my family on my shoulders," and it basically goes into how he is considered to be someone that is sort of straightforward, no nonsense. He's tough to deal with. His teammates say he's tough to deal with. Some of his rivals say he races sort of aggressively, sounds very similar to someone else who has a bit of a chip on their shoulder, right? And basically he goes to saying, look, I'm here. I had to fight to be here, and my family sold their house to fund his go-kart career. They lived on the road in a caravan going all over Europe to his karting events. They basically went broke trying to get him to F1. And he basically was just like, look, my family gave up everything to get me here. I'm not going to back down. And if someone has a problem with that, then, tough luck. And I just thought he reminded me a lot of what we hear from Ross Chastain often, right? Ross had to drive for small teams. I remember the story of him taking a bus to a race at one point because I think he had a car issue or whatever. Like he really roughed it, and toughed it out in some really tough situations and got to a premier ride. And I think you get the attitude that he has, which is like, look, no one wanted me here and I got here. And if you got a problem with me, then tough, because I'm trying to make carve my niche and my space in this sport. And I'm trying to stay. And so I just thought Esteban Ocon had very similar sentiments. So if you're a fan of Ross Chastain in NASCAR, maybe you can be an Esteban Ocon fan in F1 with him.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's my route. Yeah, that's my reasoning. Did you see the Valtteri Bottas commercial?
Yes.
All over social media with this one. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on his Twitter and all over the internet, basically. And it's him talking about Uber car share and being basically an honorary Australian and how he loves Australia with his mullet and highlights and all that. And
short shorts.
Short shorts and meat pies, and it goes on and on. It's really, really well done. So if you're a fan of seeing companies utilize motorsports in a fun way with their marketing, this was a really good one. Also, shout out to what was it? What's the company that was on the 6 car? Brad Keselowski's sponsor?
King's Wine?
No, not them. Cellular Wireless or something. Not good that I can't remember the name of them. I think it's Cellular Wireless. AJ, do you know? By the way, we have AJ Henderson on with us today, not Josh Mendoza. AJ's filling in for Josh. Let's see if he heard me. I don't think he heard me. He's probably not listening anymore.
There he is. Consumer Cellular, it looks like.
Consumer Cellular.
Yes.
Thanks, AJ. Consumer
Thank
Cellular.
you, AJ. Yeah.
What does Consumer Cellular do?
Well, no, because my point of bringing that up is they had a commercial where they cut the top off the car, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Right. The convertible.
So it's good to see sponsors doing fun stuff, being creative with motorsports. I like that. Getting back to F1, Lando Norris wants F1 cars to be more comfortable because they've gotten so bad since the 2022 cars. Basically, they have to run these. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Once again, connecting F1 and NASCAR. They have to run them so low and stiff to create the body aerodynamics that they went to because everyone in motorsports in the last 5 years / 10 years decided that aero isn't as bad if it's under the car as opposed to on top of the car. This is what everyone decided. So everything is about underbody aerodynamics, by the way, for those people that don't understand this. Mm-hmm. Well, he basically said because of that, it's made the cars really harsh to drive, and that his back is hurting, and that it hurts and to get out of these cars, that sort of thing, which I can empathize with slightly, but not massively, because his teammate Oscar Piastri basically goes as far to say, I agree, but we're race teams that are designed just to make the fastest car, and I don't care if it hurts. I just want the fastest car, So, and that's gonna be racers. What's the old adage by Frank Williams, which was, if I offer my car, if I told my drivers they could have a car that's 0.2 faster, but 100% more dangerous, they'll take the 0.2 faster anytime, and it's just they don't give a shit. I think that's a similar sentiment there. So I don't know if you have any hard feelings about his sentiments.
I don't know. I mean, I think that he definitely I was reading it just to make sure that he wasn't taken out of context, because I saw a lot of hot takes on Twitter and kind of those sort of ripping him a little bit of just being soft or being a wimp about it. He was absolutely talking about his comfort in the car and his body, and those are legitimate concerns. These the new Cup cars are rigid and tough, and they're hard on your head. They're hard on your everything. Dale Jr. was the one that really sort of taught the drivers after he had spent so much time with doctors learning about concussions, and he was the one that sort of introduced the knowledge to the rest of us about these micro concussions that drivers get, and how we can get these micro concussions in races even where we didn't wreck. We weren't involved in an accident. We just had so much repeated impact on our heads from corner after corner after corner, and rigidity and bouncing off the racetrack, how hard that is and how dangerous that is for our bodies. But I still share the everything you said about I share Oscar's point. I'm not, I don't think any of that is holding me back from wanting to drive a car and drive the fastest car. I think the driver's argument to take is very more similar to everything we were saying earlier, that it's just I don't know if stiff aero-dependent cars are better for racing.
Yep.
To me, that you could take that angle more and get more support than trying to say that it's not good for the driver physically. I don't think you're going to garner a lot of empathy there. But I think that you can easily prove that, hey, these stiff cars are not the direction that racing should go. And right now, that's my hot topic. And you will continue to hear me make points to validate that topic until I change my mind.
Your doink topic.
Switch to another topic. Yeah, we don't need to doink these cars all over the track.
Doink it.
Speaking of stiff race cars.
Yeah, there wasn't much more in the F1 world to dive into. Wait. We do have something new, groundbreaking.
When is F1? Well, I guess we have towards the end of the show, we've got our weekend schedule. So
yes, but hold on. Speaking of the FIA and Formula One, just breaking now, Susie Wolff files criminal complaint against the FIA. If you remember, the FIA made those allegations against her at the end of last year between her and Toto Wolff, possibly having a conflict of interest between them because of information that they might have gotten that only they would have known and be able to tell each other because of her role in the F1 Academy versus Toto Wolff's role as team principal of Mercedes F1 team. And she basically said that there hasn't been a good enough explanation, and therefore, this has damaged her reputation that she's fought hard to harness, and therefore she wants answers and is filing this legal complaint. So, criminal complaint, against the FIA. Once again, a real, above board, transparent, open book, global sporting organization. You can't, sometimes
over there are just killing it. They're doing great.
Yeah, I mean, look, what are they going to find? It's all out there apparently. So it's and things
Super
just get
trustworthy.
Things happen really quickly there. It's kind of like, hey, we're gonna make this really
never
massive
gonna get
allegation
for an F1 race.
Never ever, and we're gonna get this massive, allegation, and then we're gonna fix it in a week. Like, it just happens. Really, they're probably teaching us all how to act amongst ourselves. So we'll look into that. Big news in
big
a different form of motorsports. Big news. IndyCar. They just announced today that season 1 of their 100 Days to Indy is headed to Netflix.
This is going to
mark your calendars for April 4th. So, yeah, this was on the CW originally. But once again, being on Netflix is the ultimate distribution possible in the entertainment world right now. And
does this have the potential to put NASCAR's Netflix to shame?
I mean, I
Do
know.
I dare say it?
I know Joseph Newgarden is shirtless in it, and he /thirst trap. So that I don't know if we got anyone like that right now in the NASCAR one. I didn't see any.
Because you are going to expose. You are going to expose to the F1 Netflix crowd the American version of F1, right?
And how cool it is.
The drivers are rich. They're all good looking. They're fit.
Yep.
The cars are cool. The Indy 500 is cool. Because with IndyCar, again, the only thing that matters is the Indy 500.
Yep.
So, I mean,
there are cool Long Beach and that sort of thing, but yeah,
there's cool races,
everything centers around the Indy 500 for sure.
Everything is Indy 500.
Yeah.
So this is really exciting and really cool, and I guess it's not fair for me to just jump and start comparing it to NASCAR, but I don't know. I think that it will
fair.
I think the impact it could have for IndyCar in the month of May is potentially huge. It'll be interesting. I am curious, what the production is like. Is it a Netflix production? Did they get,
I think they're just. It sounds to me like they're just taking the one they had on the CW.
Is it a good show
on Netflix? It is. I thought it was decent for sure. I think it follows all the same templates as the NASCAR one. Everything. It's behind the scenes. It's BTS, which is always interesting and fun. I will say, you mentioned they are athletes in that, and I think people that liked F1 are going to see this and think this is very cool. Okay, this is like F1, but they actually race really closely and have tons of passes, and it's awesome. I think it's similar to what they saw in NASCAR. I wasn't asked to be on the Netflix NASCAR show shirtless, but I would I'd offer it up to compete against Joseph Newgarden. I'd need a heads up of about 3 to 6 years to get ready, but just putting it out there. So if you guys, the producers there want to give me a heads up. But cool to see. Good for IndyCar. They've been going through a tough time. We talked about it last week when the St. Pete opener. A lot of enthusiasm, a big crowd there, and a lot of the series, harping on Roger and his group for not doing enough to promote the series. So I think this is really big. And, whether that's substantiated or not, right, I don't really know internally or intimately. I just think it's great for IndyCar to get this level of promotion distribution, hopefully. So I love IndyCar. We're big fans of IndyCar on here, and it's incredible racing with great storylines and super. Like, the crazy thing is, you watch St. Pete the other week, and it's just like there's 26 competitive race teams in IndyCar, and I remember back in post the Champ Car and IndyCar coming back together, and how there was like struggling at times to have 18 cars out there that mattered, right? And now to see so many competitive cars and such good teams and great drivers and all that stuff, I think it's a perfect time for them to be exposed to the world. So hopefully it has a great effect. Another American racing that just had a big moment was this past weekend for IMSA at the Sebring 12-hour, which had its largest crowd ever. That's pretty amazing. Really awesome. And the last hour was unbelievable. Nighttime, 60 some odd cars, whatever, 50 some odd cars on the track, and the GTP, why can I not say that, battle for the win in the last hour was sensational between Louis Delatraz and Sebastian Bourdais, literally touching each other. It was like classic stock car racing with full-on hybrid prototypes in the nighttime at Sebring after it's been destroyed for 11 hours and pounded on over days of different race cars and different racing, and rubber built up on the sides, and GT cars are having to go by, and it's just one of the most insane things ever. And I turned to my girlfriend when we were watching that race the other weekend, and I was like, these guys are so badass. I was like, they're just badass.
Racing is so cool.
It's so cool, and they do it all over the world, and it's just such a cool vibe. So great to see a large crowd out there, a lot of momentum. They already announced their 2025 schedule, which is crazy for IMSA this early. So huge amount of momentum. And we didn't talk about this, by the way. There was NASCAR teams down there sniffing around trying to get some IMSA programs put together, including one I saw tweeted, which was Brad Keselowski tweeted about it, saying he wants to get RFK involved. Yeah. So lastly, the NASCAR TV ratings were up once again for this weekend, 10%, 3.8 million viewers. The first race under 4 million of the season. But once again, a bump
holding
up
strong.
For NASCAR TV. Yeah,
really
holding
cool
strong, which is cool.
NASCAR, very cool.
And then I need your opinion on this before we get out of here. Closing topics. EV sales are falling as a member of a dealership conglomerate that is Castle Motors. I thought this was interesting. Adam Stern reporting from the Wall Street Journal how U.S. sales of hybrids have jumped 50% in the first 2 months of the year. That surge outpaced EV sales, which grew 13%. Hybrids flew off dealer lots in 25 days on average, nearly 3 times faster than EVs and twice as fast as gas-powered cars. With all the motorsports world for the last 5 years talking about EVs, and now that's all going away, and it's all sort of like, we're not sure what to do. Maybe we just stick with this whole internal combustion engine thing, or at least let's do hybrids. This was really interesting to see the consumer once again backing up what we're hearing potentially happening in boardrooms discussing the future of motorsports, in that maybe EV isn't the future right now.
It is interesting. I think there's just a huge market correction going on with EVs. I think that the hype around EVs on the road way exceeded the actual interest, obviously. I guess, granted, I'm stating the obvious right now, so let me get through all the stating the obvious. From the car dealership, the car business side of things, what I'm seeing is just a massive oversupply of EVs and a huge correction in the wholesale market in EVs. But there's an interesting opportunity going on for consumers because the government has this what do they call it? This clean vehicle used. Let me get the terminology right for you just a second.
Look at that. We're doing real journalism here.
Well, I'm trying to find the name of this thing. It's the tax credit for pre-owned plug-in electric and fuel cell vehicles. So, the federal government is offering a tax credit to eligible plug-in hybrids for vehicles that sell under $25,000, and it's up to $4,000 tax credit. You basically use it as your down payment. The money goes straight to the dealer, but it has to go towards the down payment. So the dealer can't technically, I don't think, can just use it to like mark up the vehicle for additional profit. It goes into the sale. We've actually done one. We sold a Prius Prime at Castle Motors last month. And that's what we did for the customer. We set up our account with the IRS, and customer came in and paid about $25,000 for the car. They got a $4,000 down payment from the government. They financed the rest. It was a great deal for the customer. And what the interesting opportunity that's happening is the market correcting now these vehicles from a couple years old that were $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 cars, because there's more EVs out there than just Teslas, right? That's every manufacturer has their own. They're used cars now, and you're seeing them in the wholesale markets, and as they're approaching this market value of between $28,000 and $25,000, now they're getting close to that number of being a $25,000 car and being eligible. So I think that the closer that these cars get to being in that number, they're going to drop to $25,000.
And then that's a hell of a deal.
Right. Oh, it's a hell of a deal, because again,
it's like one of the best deals on the road. Yeah.
I'm looking at them. I look at them every day when I'm looking at the used car market. You see a Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, right? And it's maybe the market rate on that car is maybe it's a $28,000 car, right? Or a $27,000 car. The book value could be $27,000 on this couple-year-old Chrysler Pacifica. But for $25,000, I can get my customer a $4,000 tax credit, right? So pretty soon, those cars are not going to be worth $28,000. They're just going to the market's going to have to drop again to get them down to $25,000, in my opinion. So we actually just bought a Hyundai Kona electric this week that we get at the dealership, and that's more of a $20,000 car. So the customer buying this car is going to get a 2-year-old electric vehicle. It's a Hyundai for $20,000. The government's going to give them $4,000 to put down on it. It's a pretty interesting deal. So I don't know how that ties into the massive drop in new EV sales, but on the used car side, it's kind of an interesting thing that I've been watching.
And what other motorsport podcast /
Can we just pivot into used car?
Would you get used cars / the car industry update from Landon Cassill like you do here on the Money Lap? I am blown away right now with our level of journalism, expertise, knowledge, and the way we were able to put that out there in such a consumable fashion. If the FIA needs advice, we're here for you. So we will help you out anytime. I think that's fascinating. We'll see how it affects motorsports, but it's been really interesting, also being a part of the car industry in terms of being more on the media side of the Autopian and doing car reviews and that sort of stuff. It's been fascinating to sort of just read the tea leaves as suddenly the sentiment shifts, and then see that affect what I see in the motorsports and hear in the motorsports world. And it's like, interesting. So it's going to be a fun time, and we'll see where it goes. Because you went so long with that, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get the guy who was on the Pat McAfee show this past week with a sensational segment, but we've got to be able to give him more time than that. So Kyle Busch, we're sorry we don't have time to have you on. But it's been a good show. Thanks for giving us the update, Landon. We'll be back next week. Peace.